Close your eyes. Listen. Do you hear the wind? No. There is no atmosphere. Do you hear the waves? No. There is no ocean. Do you hear the buzzing of insects, the cry of a bird, the heartbeat of a mammal? Silence. We exist in a tiny pocket of time, a sliver of cosmic history where water flows and lungs expand. We call our era normal. But for 99.99% of the universe's timeline, there was no life. No oxygen. No blue sky. There was only fire, rock, and the slow, indifferent ticking of gravity. Before the first fish swam, before the first cell divided, before the first drop of rain fell, there was the birth of a planet. This is the true story of Earth. Not the one from the textbooks that starts with oceans. The one that starts with hell. To find our beginning, we must erase everything. Erase the continents. Erase the magnetic field. Erase time itself. We must go back 4.5 billion years, to a place where nothing shines. Picture a cloud. Not a cloud of water vapor, like you see on a summer afternoon. A cloud of stardust. Trillions of miles wide. Leftover debris from a previous generation of stars, stars that lived, burned bright, and violently exploded into supernovae long before our sun ever woke up. This is the solar nebula. Inside this cloud, there is no air. There is no sound. But there is gravity. The weakest force in the universe, the force that allows you to lift a book off a table, is, over millions of years, the most relentless killer of emptiness. At the heart of this cloud, hydrogen atoms begin to crowd together. They bump, they jostle, they beg for space they don't have. Pressure builds. Temperatures rise. 1 million degrees. 5 million degrees. 10 million degrees. Fusion begins. The sun is born. With that ignition, a great solar wind blasts outward. It sweeps the lighter elements, hydrogen and helium, away to the outer reaches of the system. That's where the gas giants will form. Jupiter. Saturn. But close to the sun. In the scorching inner zone. Only the heavy stuff remains. Rock. Metal. Iron. Nickel. Silicates. These are the ingredients of hell. And they are about to become Earth. For the first few million years, nothing looks like a planet. The inner solar system is a donut of dust. A debris field. Tiny particles, no bigger than grains of sand, drift through the vacuum. But here's the secret: dust wants to clump. Static electricity, the same shock you get from touching a doorknob, sticks these grains together. They form pebbles. Pebbles form boulders. Boulders form asteroids. Once you have a boulder, gravity takes over. The larger the rock, the more it pulls. The more it pulls, the larger it grows. We call this process accretion. You might call it cosmic robbery. Within 20 million years, there are hundreds of moon-sized objects, planetesimals, screaming through the darkness. They don't orbit nicely. They are angry. Chaotic. Every few hours, two of them find each other. And when rock meets rock at 10,000 miles per hour, they don't bounce. They shatter. Or worse, they fuse. The proto-Earth begins to take shape. But it is not a cradle. It is a war zone. If you could stand on the surface of Earth 4.5 billion years ago, you would not recognize the ground beneath your feet. There is no ground. There is only melt. The energy from all those collisions, all that kinetic force, converts directly to heat. The constant bombardment keeps the planet in a liquid state. We call it the magma ocean. But it isn't an ocean of water. It is an ocean of fire. Thousands of miles deep. 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But even in this liquid hell, order begins to emerge. Gravity sorts the ingredients. The heavy stuff, iron and nickel, sinks. Drops like stones in a blacksmith's forge. They fall toward the center of the planet, consolidating into a dense, metallic core. The lighter stuff, silicon, oxygen, aluminum, floats toward the surface. This will become the mantle, and eventually, the crust. It takes only a few tens of millions of years for Earth to differentiate. A core of iron. A shell of rock. A surface of molten fury. But the solar system is still a shooting gallery. The violence isn't done. Not by a long shot. Meet Theia. A planetary embryo about the size of Mars. She is on a collision course with the young Earth. There is no atmosphere to burn her up. No ocean to slow her down. Direct hit. The impact is the most violent event in Earth's history. The entire planet melts, again. Thousands of trillions of tons of rock are vaporized and thrown into orbit. For a few hundred years, Earth has a ring. Not like Saturn's icy rings. A ring of molten lava droplets. A donut of fire. But gravity doesn't like rings. Gravity coalesces. Over 1,000 years, those droplets accrete into a new body. It orbits close. It orbits fast. We call it the Moon. Initially, the Moon is 10 times closer than it is today. It takes up a third of the sky. Tides, if there were oceans to move, would be miles high. But there are still no oceans. The planet is still too hot. Water cannot exist as a liquid here. It would vaporize instantly. For the next 500 million years, Earth is a planet of extremes. A cooling crust forms, then melts again. Volcanoes erupt constantly. The sky is thick with carbon dioxide, methane, and sulfur. If you had a nose, the air would kill you. If you had skin, the heat would boil you. If you had ears, you would hear only the hiss of lava and the crack of asteroid impacts. This period has a name. Scientists call it the Hadean Eon. Named after Hades. The Greek underworld. For once, mythology got it right. Slowly. Incrementally. The bombardment slows down. The solar system is running out of debris. The planets have eaten most of the crumbs. The surface temperature of Earth drops below the melting point of rock. For the first time, a solid crust forms. It is black. Basaltic. Thin. Fragile. No bigger than the skin on a bowl of pudding. This is not the granite of modern continents. That comes later. This is dark, dense, oceanic crust. It cracks immediately under its own stress. Magma bleeds through the fissures like scars. And then, something changes. The sky begins to weep. For millions of years, comets and asteroids have been delivering a secret ingredient. Frozen water. Locked in the ice of space debris. When these comets hit the young Earth, they didn't just bring rock. They brought H2O. Now that the surface has cooled below the boiling point of water, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, something miraculous happens. Water remains liquid. It starts slowly. A single raindrop hits the hot basalt. It hisses. It evaporates. But the rock is cooling. Another raindrop. Another. Eventually, the rock wins. The rain stops evaporating. It begins to pool. At first, these are puddles. Then ponds. Then shallow seas. But there is no oxygen in the air. The sky is a choking brownish-orange. The water is not blue. It is acidic. Filled with dissolved iron and heavy metals. It looks like rust. It tastes like battery acid. This is the early ocean. Deadly. Scalding. And absolutely essential. But here is the twist in the story. The most important water on early Earth might not have come from rain at all. Geologists have discovered that our planet's mantle holds several oceans worth of water, trapped inside minerals. As the magma ocean cooled, that water was squeezed out like water from a sponge. It rose through cracks in the crust. Before the sky rain formed the surface seas, the ground was sweating. Deep in the darkness, at the bottom of these new acidic oceans, hydrothermal vents begin to form. Cracks in the crust where superheated, mineral-rich water explodes into the cold sea. These vents are chimneys of rock and metal. They spew hydrogen, methane, and ammonia. And in that chemistry, in that violent, dark, high-pressure environment, something stirs. For 800 million years, Earth has been a chemical factory. The atmosphere, mostly nitrogen and carbon dioxide. The oceans, a primordial soup of organic compounds. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur. These elements form amino acids. Amino acids form proteins. Proteins form potential. We do not know exactly what happened next. This is the greatest mystery in science. But we know the clock started ticking. Imagine a bubble. Not a soap bubble. A bubble of fatty acid molecules, self-assembling in the warm water. Inside this bubble, organic molecules become concentrated. Protected. Isolated from the chaos outside. This bubble is not alive. It does not think. It does not move. But it does do one thing that life does: it maintains a boundary between inside and outside. Now, introduce energy. Lightning strikes the ocean surface. Ultraviolet radiation, brutal and unfiltered by ozone, bombards the shallows. Heat gradients pulse from the vents. Somewhere, in a trillions to one accident, a molecule forms that can copy itself. Ribonucleic acid. RNA. RNA is the cheat code of the universe. It can store information, like a hard drive. And it can catalyze chemical reactions, like a factory robot. Most importantly, it can make copies of itself. It is not alive. But it is the bridge to life. Once you have a self-replicating molecule inside a protective bubble, evolution is inevitable. Because copying is never perfect. Mistakes happen. A mistake that helps the bubble hold together longer. That mistake gets copied. A mistake that helps the bubble grab energy better. That gets copied too. Filter this process through 400 million years, millions of generations of bubbles, and you stop having chemistry. You start having biology. The first living things are not plants. Not animals. Not fungi. They are single-celled organisms. Archaea. Bacteria. They do not need oxygen. In fact, oxygen is poison to them. They eat iron, sulfur, hydrogen. They live in the dark, in the vents, in the scalding water. For the next 2 billion years, these microbes are the only life on Earth. They shape the planet. They produce oxygen as a waste product. At first, the oxygen rusts the iron in the oceans, turning the seas green and red. But eventually, the oceans saturate. The oxygen bleeds into the sky. And for the first time, the sky turns blue. Oxygen creates the ozone layer. The ozone layer blocks the deadly UV radiation. For the first time, life can leave the protection of the water. It can crawl onto the shore. It takes 4 billion years from the formation of the dust cloud to the first fish. 4 billion years from a dead rock to a beating heart. We look at the ocean today and see blue. Peaceful. Eternal. But that ocean is a survivor. Every drop of water on Earth has been through a volcano. Every molecule of oxygen in your lungs was once exhaled by a cyanobacteria 3 billion years ago. The iron in your blood was forged in the core of a star that died before the sun was born. You are not a human being living on a planet. You are the planet, conscious for a brief moment, looking back at its own birth. Before life, before oceans, before the first raindrop fell, there was the long, dark, hot, violent patience of rock and fire. There were no witnesses. No cameras. No narrators. But the story is written anyway, in the layers of zircon crystals, in the scars on the moon, in the ratio of iron isotopes in our blood. We are the memory of the dust. We are the voice of the volcano. We are the eyes of the earth, finally open, looking back at the fire from which we came. And now, close your eyes again. Do you hear the wind? Do you hear the waves? Listen closer. That sound is the echo of creation.